Hey there, scary people, and welcome back to the One Scary Woman YouTube channel. So, as mentioned last week, you guys are with me at the start of a journey that's going to take place over this next year. That journey being the completion of a feature film. So, we're going to be going all the way through the script process, all the way to the release of the film, just step by step each week. I'm going to be sharing with you what I'm doing so that if this is a goal of yours in your life, you want to complete a feature film as well, you can follow along and learn from this channel. Now, if this is a goal of yours, please go ahead and like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of these steps along the way towards that completed feature film. Now, today, what I'm going to take a minute and talk about before we really get off and running with this journey is just how to pick your movie project. So some of you are probably coming in here and already have scripts. You already have a particular story that you're dreaming of bringing to the screen, but maybe not. Maybe you just know that you have a dream of doing a film, but you don't quite yet have the story. Maybe you're not a writer. Maybe you're looking more to stay just on the producing end of things, and you're not quite sure what sort of story to search for. And that's what we want to talk about today, how you actually pick your project. So the most important thing to think about when you're at the start of this process is really, what do you hope to get out of doing this in the first place? So if you are just looking to straight up produce a film and the end goal is just to make money, and of course I know we all want to make money regardless, you don't want to go broke on your films, but if you really want to build a living and make money off this film, then your consideration is really going to be more towards looking at the genres that get the most bang for the buck. So the genres that are proven to do well financially. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But maybe you have different motivations. So maybe you just want to complete a film so that you can use that film as a calling card to get other jobs. Particularly sometimes when people are just starting out in a directing career. Or if you are a screenwriter and you're trying to get your writing career off the ground and you want to be able to show things that you have actually done, you might just want to create the film. The end result, that end film in and of itself, is the point, so that you can have it as a calling card. Also, you might just have a story, a particular story, that you're really just burning to tell, that you're burning to share. And this is the case with the script that I am going to be using throughout this process. So as you might guess from the name, and if you've looked at any of my background, I work primarily in the horror and thriller genres. And for years now, I've been holding on to this script that meant a lot to me. So it is a horror script, but it's actually not a conventional horror script. If I was to write a horror script, that more closely adhered to the conventions of the genre, which I actually would recommend doing because you want to be able to satisfy those genre fans, it wouldn't necessarily be this script. So this script is very dialogue heavy, really just with a bit of a supernatural twist at the end. Now, the good thing about this is that it's going to make it easier for me to film. There's not really a demand for a lot of special effects or anything like that. It's mostly two people talking until the very last scene. And of course, tension does build throughout the conversation. A sense of, disease, definitely comes up and people start to feel nervous. But until that very last scene, the supernatural horror element doesn't fully reveal itself. The best way I can actually describe it is that it's similar to the movie Before Sunset. If Before Sunset had sort of a creepy undertone throughout and then ended with a supernatural twist. So for me, this was just a film that for years I held very close to my heart. I have always wanted to see it made, and I've always wanted to see it stay true to its original state. So while it has been optioned a couple times, in this instance, I wasn't particularly open to making a whole lot of changes or making it more conventional horror. But as a screenwriter for horror, if it was a different script, then I would recommend, if you're working as a screenwriter for horror and you're asked to make changes to make it more closely adhere with a genre, then do that. All right. So 2 more notes on this for you guys to think about as you're considering picking a project to work on yourself. So coming back to this idea of genres. So like I mentioned before, if your goal is purely just to make money, or maybe your goal is a combination of all the above. Maybe you want a calling card. Maybe you have a story you care about, but of course you want to make money too. You don't want to lose money doing the film. Consider the genre, because there's certain genres that are going to do better than others. And luckily for me, horror is that genre. So horror is the genre that even if it's made with a very low budget, without any A-list talent, a horror movie can still be successful. And that's because horror fans don't necessarily care that much about who exactly is in the movie. End of the day, they just care, is it scary? And actually, it's one of the few genres where having an A-list or recognizable face in the lead role can actually work against you. Because if your goal is to go in and be scared, it's harder to forget that the person that you're watching is actually a famous, successful, beautiful actor than it would be if it's just someone who is a very talented actor but not well known. So having it be someone not well known can add a degree of realism to the horror that's more engaging to the audience. Now, to talk quickly about other genres, and again, if you have a story that you're burning to tell, it doesn't mean that you can't, especially if you don't care as much about the money piece. But genres like drama and rom-com, these other kind of genres, you're really going to have to rely on recognizable talent in those roles for those films to have much of a reach. It's going to be very, very hard to get clicks, to get views, to get anybody distribution picking up those films unless there's recognizable talent that can bring an audience to them. So that's not the case with horror. With horror fans will watch just as long as the concept sounds interesting and the poster is really, really good. So I've definitely known a lot of filmmakers who have sold their horror films before the film was even made, just on the basis of a poster. If the poster was strong enough, a sales agent can look at it and say, yes, I can sell that to horror fans. That looks good and creepy. And they can move forward and have a deal. Now, one other thing to think about when you're picking your project is whether or not you have any niche audience that you can tap into. So this is a concept that's been getting more and more traction. If you do choose to make a film, maybe it's still a horror film, but maybe if you really want to work in another genre, ask yourself, what are some of the smaller niches that might be attracted to that particular film? Because if you can tap into the niche and the niche community, you can actually still wind up getting a lot of views for that film just on the basis that there's this underserved community out there that is looking for that particular type of story, and maybe they haven't seen that particular story told just yet. So it's something that they're waiting for. So, okay, once again, we are just at the beginning of our journey. If you're like me and this year you're hoping to make your film or at least get started making your film, you're wondering what project to work on, these are just a few things to keep in mind. So think about the genre that you most want to work with. If it's not an issue, you don't have a particular one, consider working in something like horror where the chances of your financial turn for a lower budget are better. So think about that. Think about whether or not you can tap into any kind of niche market as well. And please comment below if you are planning to make a film and let me know what kind of film you're hoping to make. I would love to hear from you and I would love to hear about your projects. All right, thank you so much. Remember to like and subscribe, and next week I will be back with some free goodies and some tips and tricks for brainstorming ideas if you're still in this stage of the process.